Blended workforces are one of the hottest talent strategies today, where employers are using a mix of traditional employees with external resources like independent contractors, coaches, consultants, vendors, and technology solutions, all in order to enhance competitiveness, ensure cost flexibility, and expedite business goals. But how are the successful companies infusing blended workforces into their business strategy? And what are the critical success factors and pitfalls to avoid during implementation? And on the flip side, what does it really take for suppliers to improve their chances of finding and landing contract opportunities? The devil is in the details, my friends. I'm your host, Karen Farrell Rhodes, and it's time to get smarter about blended workforces at work. Hello, my superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to another episode of the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. On today's show, we have an absolutely fantastic guest for you today. We are so thrilled to feature Miles Everson, who is an independent thinker and business builder. And he's also currently the CEO of MBO Partners. And MBO Partners is a direct sourcing platform that enables enterprises and independent workers to work efficiently together. And he's going to tell us a lot more about the great work that they're doing. But Miles is also the author of the new book called Freebirds Revolution. I want to make sure I got that right.
Got
Freebirds
that right.
Revolution. And the subheading is The Future of Work and the Independent Mind. So welcome to the podcast, Miles.
Well, thanks, Karen. It's my pleasure to be here. You're very gracious, so thank you.
Oh, we are just absolutely thrilled to have you. I can't wait to dig in a bit more about MBO Partners, but definitely want to understand more about your book and the lessons learned out of there and share those with our audience members. But before we delve into the good stuff, we want some other good stuff if we can. So we always love to know just a tad bit about our guests and their life outside of work. So would you mind sharing just a few insights with us?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I'm kind of living my best life, frankly. I'm in Austin, Texas, live right on Lady Bird Lake, and so I spend a lot of time out in nature around the lake here. And then kind of my thing is a bit of biohacking, or at least health. It's not all biohacking, but I'm into health. And that's my passion right now is I want to be healthy till the minute before I die.
And we want that for you too, and I want that as well.
So,
Love it.
yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I will say Austin is beautiful. It can get hot in the summer,
Yes, it can.
but it is beautiful. I was just attending a wedding a few months ago in Austin, and it was absolutely gorgeous. So I'm kind of envious of you all during the good weather.
Yeah, it's July and August get a little dicey, but
Ooh, let me tell you. Well, fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and get started on, our conversations. And before we spend the bulk of our time on the book, I would love for you to share at a high level with our audience your professional background thus far and what brought you to MBO Partners and what you all do.
yeah, so I spent 32 years at a firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And when I was there, I was in the consulting business, and ultimately I was the global CEO of our deals and consulting businesses. And so you get to work with a lot of really bright minds and frankly, independent thinkers. And so great clients, and I was a client service person at heart. And then they asked me to take on these leadership jobs to help other people be successful, which that's a whole nother story. But that when I was in one of those roles in the US is when I came across the importance of embracing independent minded people and professionals to help achieve our organization's objectives. And so that's how I got to know MBO Partners, frankly, was when I was doing that. I didn't know what it was at the time, to be frank, but I started a direct sourcing platform. It was called the Talent Exchange. It still is today.
Oh, wow.
And I was just trying to match great people with great projects and doing that in a way that was good for them and a firm. And when I decided to retire at 54, right, from
That's great.
PwC, and I met with Gene Zano, the founder of MBO Partners, and he just said, "Why don't you come here and do another 100 or 1,000 times what you did before?" And have some fun doing it. So, 5 years later, here I am, and I'm loving it. So,
Wow.
yeah,
What a great story. What a great fit because you had such expertise and astuteness in that area, experience, and then to be able to bring it to a new organization, your expertise, as you've written the book, give insights into the power of an independent thinkers. I think that's just amazing.
yeah,
Absolutely amazing.
yeah. And I mean, I would say we weren't the earliest, but we would have been early adopters of the blended workforce, right? Like, how do you think about technology and your workforce beyond your full-time W-2 employees
That's
to
right.
to bring the best resources available on the planet to solve problems and capture opportunities? And that's frankly what we did. It was no more complicated than that. Easier to say than do, but we did it. So,
I know, it's not very complicated now. I'll be honest with you, Miles. Back when I was working at Microsoft, we were doing that already without a formal name or movement behind it. It
right,
wasn't written up in Fortune or Inc. or Financial Times, but we
right.
were operating in that. And I was that person that they always tapped on for special projects and big things, infrastructure type of things we were doing. And I naturally got to work, with independents who were experts in certain areas of expertise. And I thought it made a fantastic team to have your internal folks and external folks and technologies working together. But it seems to be so revolutionary now. I'm not sure why, but it's
I
cool.
think one of the things, is companies like Microsoft and other leading tech companies were kind of the culture, the DNA, if you will, of the company had to be to break glass in terms of thinking about doing things differently.
Yeah,
And so you just kind of get the whole correlation of a management mindset, et cetera, that says, well, maybe we can see the possible and do something different than the way everyone else has always done it. Because tech companies are kind of leaders in the use of independent professionals
they
and have
are.
been for decades, frankly.
They sure are. Well, tell us a little bit more about MBO partners. Like, who's your target market? What are the expertise in industries you work in? Is it
Yeah.
all of the above? Give us a little bit more information about
Yeah.
the clients you serve.
So I'm going to take this just a little bit. I think it's really interesting for your audience. But
Okay.
so
Yeah.
so MBO Partners stands for, originally was My Business Office. So Gene
Oh,
Zano, the
interesting.
founder in 1995, he wanted to set up and did set up. Think of it as the administrative offices for an independent professional consultant at the time. So all their taxes, their if they needed a website, their marketing materials, all that kind of stuff. And then one day he had a client call him, a company, and they said, "Who are you? Because we're getting all these invoices with your logo on it from our independent professionals." Right? Because he was helping them run their business. Because all these
He was their
independents
back
wanted,
office.
yeah, their back office. All they wanted to do was do what they're good at. That's part of the reason they were independents. They didn't want all the administrative kind of stuff that comes with operating inside a company. And so, kind of a light bulb went off, as it does often with entrepreneurs. And he said, well, I should go sell this service to enterprises. And so he sold the service being, I will help your extended workforce, i.e., independents, be properly classified and set up the right company so they're compliant as either 1099s. And if they're not, then they'll be a W-2 and I'll put them in my payroll company and take care of them. But you can have ready access to independence. And that's how he switched it from My Business Office to MBO Partners.
Ah,
And that's why I found him originally. Was I was looking for somebody to do the worker classification for me to make sure it was done right. And when I went out and, did all my search with the legal community, they said, well, the gold standard is MBO Partners. So that's how we got to Gene. And then when I came, I said, well, we're doing this thing, the talent exchange, the front end, which most people now would call direct sourcing. And so why don't we think about how we do those two things, the classification work and that front end direct sourcing at the same time? And so that's what we've been doing. And it's just a really rich complement of services so companies can take control of accessing more resources than what they otherwise might be able to get to.
oh, that's amazing. And are there certain backgrounds or industries that seem to be naturally drawn to you, like those independents or
Yeah, so it's about a third of our independents are somewhere associated with technology projects,
I can
right?
imagine
Another third are associated more like with professional accounting,
professional
yeah,
services?
professional services. And then you have another third that can be anywhere from executive coaches to, people that will do marketing. We have some, we don't really specialize in the fractional, CXO, but we have people that do that.
Yeah.
Because I would say that the most successful independents. So when I say independents, I'm thinking of people that make 100,000 or more a year doing their thing, right?
Yeah.
Most of them have like a half dozen clients that they rotate between from year to year.
Right.
So, it's not just they're not beholden to one company, but they're also not serving 100 different companies. That's
Right.
rare, right? So yeah, it's we take care of their administration and they can go do the work they love. Our purpose is to help people do the work they love the way they want. And that's what we get up and try to do every day, frankly.
That's amazing. And, you pick your research study or your research group, and almost all of them have, projected even more independent workers taking a larger share of the workforce as we move forward, definitely in the next 3 to 5 years. But there's already a significant amount that are doing it right now anyway. So this is going to continue to grow based on what people are projecting.
Yes. So we have the longest, I mean, Gene did it, I came into it, but MBO has the longest running primary research study of independence in the United States. And it's 15 years now that this has been going on.
Oh,
So
wow.
we got mounds and mounds of data on what makes independence successful, how they think, how companies think about it. But right now, when we did it last fall, there's 72 million Americans that are working as independent professionals. So you compare that to the US W-2 workforce, which is about 159 million people. The difference is that full-time workforce, non-farm labor, is growing at about 1.2, 1.3% a year. And the independent workforce is growing at 6.3% a year. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
demonstrably higher growth than the full-time workforce.
Yeah.
And, we view ourselves as just helping enable people do what they want to do and how they, when I'm really simple, it's helping people figure out how they feed their family in a different way than being a full-time W-2. And it's no more complicated than that.
It is amazing. Wow. Well, I could talk about what you all are doing all day because I'm a
Yeah.
studier of blended workforces, but I want to make sure we have plenty of time to talk about your book, which again is Freebirds Revolution, the future of work and the independent mind. So, can you share with us what drove you to write the book and maybe share a few tips or ideas that do come from the book with us?
Yeah. I can talk forever, so I'm going to take breaks.
Okay.
so, so I think the first thing is kind of what is a free bird? And that's what I think about it. And so I
Mhm.
think of a free bird as somebody who is unapologetically authentic and they're independent minded. And being authentic doesn't mean you're rude. It means you really understand who you are, because the authentic people that really know who they are the ones that I would argue are happy and they're effective independent providers. Right. And part of what got me going on this was I saw it just in the people that I worked with, but also I think in the age of social media and people projecting who they think they should be out, I can't think of a phrase that's more inappropriate than the one that says perception is reality, because perception is reality for everybody except the person that knows that perception is false.
Right. That's true.
Right. It would be a horrible way to go through life not being authentic and pretending you're somebody you're not. So part of the behind Freebirds was to say, look, not only is it okay, it's desirable to be highly authentic, but to do that, you got to be vulnerable. You're going to have people that don't agree with you. They're going to think what you're doing is foolish or silly and that you just have to be okay with that. And if you do that, you'll find your stride and be successful.
Right.
And so I went after that. And I think you also have to be independent minded. When I say independent minded, I don't think people trust central authorities anymore. Okay. And this is not a
What, because
political.
of the erosion of trust?
Yeah, and it's not a political statement.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a societal. It doesn't matter politics. Like, so what I mean by that is, who goes and if they're going to go to a restaurant, goes to a central food critic to see if it's good food? Nobody does. You go to Yelp,
Yeah.
right? Or you go to
That's
other reviews, and then I kind of step back and I say, well, who trusts big banks? Who trusts big pharma? Who trusts big platforms? Who trusts big government? Basically, nobody. You trust your peers more than you trust central authorities.
that's
And so
true.
to do that, you have to be independent minded, which means you're curious, you do your own research, you learn, you don't just, you trust but verify. You form your own view. You don't just say, well, the news said this or the central authority said that, so therefore it is.
Right.
You challenge it, and in a respectful way, of course, but you form your own views after you've done that. You scratch that curiosity itch. So that's how I think about it.
And So you're in the book, you're advocating for more independent thinking, or are you trying to help people understand how to embrace independent thinkers, or both?
It's both. And I'm encouraging people to embrace being an independent thinker and being authentic for the individual, and for companies to embrace a workforce where you have independent thinkers in the
Gotcha.
workforce. So think about this, like we both have worked in companies. So everyone says, well, I'm going to hire diverse people, et cetera, right? And then the first thing they do is they send them to a 6 or 8 week training program to tell them that this is how we think at this company.
Right, don't no, yeah.
Okay. Like, so I want to hire you from a heterogeneous perspective, but I want you to all kind of basically move towards a homogeneous spot. I just think it's wrong. Okay. Like,
I
I
do
don't think you
too.
get the best talent doing that. And I don't think you get the best answer for creating value and creating great, rewarding careers for people by doing that. So that's part of it. Right. And then the other piece that I talk about in the book is I call for a change in the social contract, because the social contract, what I mean by that is that the regulatory system around work has effectively deputized companies to collect information, taxes, et cetera, on behalf of the employee. And if they're not classifying them right, the government goes after the company instead of the employee.
Right.
And I think that's wrong. I'm a big advocate for individual choice on all matter, including the choice of how I contract and get treated when I want to go feed my family and create economic flows to do that. So I think it's great that companies and employees have the right to organize and form unions so that when the big corporates picking on the little guy, they have some power against them. But I don't think I should automatically be told that because I'm going to exchange my time and knowledge, I have to be classified as a W-2 employee. I think I should be able to be classified however I want to operate as an individual.
I
And so
agree.
I just think we have an antiquated system, and that needs to change. It's very complicated. There's federal rules layered with state rules, and like it's hard to navigate. And what's interesting, Karen, I'm advocating for this, and I make a bunch of money today at MBO by being the guy that figures out how to do the classification. But I think what's right for America and right for families is to make it easier. And I propose solutions in the book that, whatever the solution is will be different than what I proposed, but I'm trying to get a little bit more energy and movement behind. We can do better for Americans on this topic in terms of how they feed their families.
And I agree with you. We absolutely can. It to your point, it will take a major shift in thinking, the company strategies, thinking, lining up regulations behind it, but it can be done. It might take a minute to evolve,
It will.
but it could be done, and it can open up a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of opportunity for both companies and the worker, because the agility alone can enhance both sides. It can be a win-win.
There's no question that there can be a win-win. Almost always, when you give people the freedom, or to be a free bird, the ability to do what they really want, and you make the system facilitates that,
Yeah,
you just get great outcomes. I mean,
absolutely.
well, I was just going to say, I often get asked kind of a question around, well, what does it take to be successful independent? How's that work? And there's lots of what I'll say functional technical aspects to it. But I kind of had boiled this down to 3 things. The first one I've touched on, right, which is you got to find your soul. Like, who are you? Don't worry about what other people think of you. Get comfortable being you. Okay. And comfortable means you're comfortable with vulnerability. And then the second is, because I get asked by parents and stuff, well, what degree should I tell my kids to go get? And I said, the best thing they can learn is to learn how to be curious, how to learn and apply. There's
Exactly.
one thing I can tell you, whatever they think they're going to do when they're 20 years old or 25 or 28 years old, they will do 5 to 10, maybe 20 different things after that.
That's right. I was gonna add pivot to that. So learn, apply, and pivot,
Yeah, and
because
pivot. That's
you're
that's
gonna
that's
have
a
to
great
do that.
add to it, right? So if you learn how to do that, and we might be losing that a little bit in the search world, right? Where
Yeah,
I don't have to learn, I just ask a question and it tells me the answer. So
right.
I do get concerned about a little bit, like, are you really developing the critical thinking skills that are necessary to do an informed pivot, to pick up on what you're saying, right? And then the last thing is you have to embrace uncertainty. I talk about trends in the book, and one of the trends I talk about is everyone knows that change is constant, but the rate of change is accelerating.
Oh gosh,
It's
yes.
irrefutable that it's accelerating. And so by definition, the faster things change, the more uncertainty that will exist around you. So you really need to learn how to cope with and embrace uncertainty in order to be a successful. I don't think it's just independent. You certainly need it to be successful independent, But I would argue to just be successful, period, you need to embrace uncertainty. And it's so critical in my mind on those, what's it take to be successful, independent. So
I agree. And, I've made the transition. This is our 10th anniversary of our firm. And I made the transition after 20 plus years in corporate, similar to you.
similar. Yeah.
But I love the entrepreneurial life. So it's well suited. But I gotta say, a lot of people leave corporate and hang a shingle, but they don't have it's a wild, wild west out there, honestly. I mean, there's some that are very competent
Yeah.
in building and running businesses and some that are really struggling. Just pop the website and then they're struggling with, what to do next. So I wish there was more. I mean, they have people, that help train how to start a business, but it's deeper than that. And I wish there was more of a skill development or upskilling for independent.
We'll do that through Freebirds is start to help. And by the way, you and I didn't talk about this beforehand, but we will do that to help skill people to be more successful as independents. But
Great
I
minds
make,
think alike,
by the way,
Miles.
I make no money on what I'm about to say,
Okay.
but I believe that anybody that's kind of exploring whether they should be an independent, they should go to Gallup's website and they should take the assessment that is called Business Builder.
Yeah.
They have strength finders. That's one thing. But the business builder is an assessment and it will tell you if you've got the attributes of what it takes to be a successful business builder. And at a minimum, it's going to tell you where you might need to complement your own skills and capabilities to be successful. I don't know what it costs, like $50 or something, right? It's not cost prohibitive.
Right.
And you'll get a good read on whether you should be a business builder. And if so, what kind of a builder you will be. I think it's fairly well known that many, many great companies have been built by somebody that is very strategic and somebody that is an operator, right?
Yeah.
So you need the glass breaker and you need the operator.
Absolutely.
I don't think that's a secret.
Not at all. Not at all. And listeners, look up that link and we'll have that in the show notes. So definitely take advantage of the Gallup's assessment as well. I'm very familiar with it, but I'll make sure those links are there. The link is in the show notes as well.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, Miles.
No, it's fine. It's free advice. And like I said, I make no money on it.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great resource. You're
yeah.
absolutely right. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts or suggestions on how companies can build better longer term relationships with external talent or the concept of blended workforces. Like, if there's one thing you wanted to leave leaders with, what would that be?
Well, yeah. So the first thing I would say is you got to shift your mindset if you're in a corporation
Yeah.
and you need to view that you want to become a client of choice to the independent. Too many organizations, I'm not saying all, but too many organizations view that an independent professional, they're doing it to manage rate and risk, and it's just a transaction, right? And the best independents get to choose who their clients are. They don't have to just take what comes over the transom. So if you want great independents to work for you, you have to treat them like they're humans.
Yes,
It,
absolutely right.
and that's part of our secret sauce at MBOs. We help companies do that, like concierge type services, where people can really feel like somebody cares about what they're doing. But I know when I came to MBO, I was at one of our clients and they were talking to me about this. And I said, I tell you what, I'll make you a bet. Let's go to your lunchroom. I'll point out who the independent professionals are that are working. They're like, you will? I said, yeah, they're going to be the people that are sitting by themselves because your employee base hasn't been communicated with that says, make them part of the team, make
Right.
them feel welcome. They're always the outcast. Now, great companies that do well with independent workforces
Mhm.
have overcome that type of an issue,
I
is what I'm
agree.
saying, right? So you just got to treat them like some of it's really basic, Karen. It's like somebody has a birthday that's on a project team that's an employee, and everyone's going to celebrate the birthday party, but they don't ask the independent
To join
to
in.
come and join the 20-minute birthday party.
I agree, definitely, because a lot of companies don't do it well. But being a company, SDL, in that space, we specialize in kind of in the HR side of things
Yeah.
and workforce side. But we do big engagements that have sometimes project teams of 40 that are assigned to
Yeah.
help with a merger acquisition or something like that. But we outline up front with our clients what a great engagement or communication or assimilation into their organization for the project looks like for both our workers and theirs. So we put it there up front to start a conversation about it,
I,
but not a lot of consulting firms do that.
I think that's great what you're doing. So I'll get a little edgy here because
Oh, please. I
I know
love
that you
it.
have HR professionals that
Yeah.
are listening to this, but I believe we're moving from is today organizations are structured for the most part around functional roles and functions, right? And there many companies are highly dependent on the humans in the company for their knowledge management.
Yeah.
Well, in the United States, the average tenure of somebody at a company is now 4 years. If you're under 35, it's 2.8 years. Your knowledge management is no longer embedded in the humans that are full-time
Right.
employees. It's going to be embedded in your tech and your data. So
Yeah.
that's why this is such, I know you talk about this, it's such a critical part of your resources. Where's my knowledge going to exist when who thinks they have a permanent workforce with those kind of numbers? Nobody has a
Yeah.
permanent
You
workforce.
don't.
So we're going to move from org charts with functions to missions or mandates of projects. And you have to have a recomposable workforce where you say, I have both full-time and I have independence, but I'm going to assemble a team to go execute a mission. I'm going to disassemble it and reassemble a new team to go do another mission. And you got to get good at how you do that. Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's the future of organizational models. And I know not everyone would agree with me, but like I said, you got to be comfortable being vulnerable.
Yeah.
um,
It's gonna come to reality. I'm gonna tell you that right
yeah.
now, Miles. So they better get comfortable with being uncomfortable because you better start prepping now.
Right. And many are, right, in
Yeah,
fairness,
yeah.
but it's hard to change,
It is hard.
old ways of thinking and organizational infrastructure and tradition, et cetera. But you got to really push that envelope on how you're going to source and deploy resources in a
Absolutely.
blended way. I think what you guys are doing is terrific, actually.
Oh, thank you. Well, Miles, we can't let you sneak out of here without asking you our signature question. And as many of my listeners know, we did research and wrote a book on high performing leaders and organizations. And there were 7 buckets, characteristics that were quite common. And you were so kind to share that courageous agility really resonated with you. And so, for my newer listeners, courageous agility is all about having the courage and the fortitude to stand up for what you believe in, do what's right, but still take those baby steps forward, even if the future is uncertain or unclear. It's all about just having that courage to get and understand all the data you can, but even if it's incomplete, you'll make a calculated risk and still make forward movement to achieve your goals. So, curious minds would love to know, Miles, why did leading courageous agility resonate with you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, is the independent mind, obviously, is
Yeah,
part of what
it
resonates for me.
aligns nicely.
But I think there is a perception by many people that making a decision to change direction is riskier than not making a decision, which is a decision to not change direction. And we know that the rate of change is accelerating. And I would argue that more often than not changing is a riskier decision than changing. And so one of the principles at MBO, when I came in, I said, we are going to make clear decisions, okay? Because people freeze in the face of uncertainty. It doesn't mean we won't correct a decision. It's okay to make a bad decision as long as you're quick to detect it and change the decision. Ambiguity and floating is not good. And that's why you got to have courageous agility to say, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to make that change. If it doesn't work out, we'll adjust. But for now, that's where we're headed. And I think that that is refreshing for the people that are on the team and it improves your performance as a business. So that's why courageous agility resonated with me.
Awesome. Well, if that's not a mic drop moment, I don't know what is. So, well, of course, Miles, we're going to have your bio, all kinds of links of where to find you and the company in our show notes. But I always love to give the guests just a tad bit of airtime to also share where people can find you and MBO Partners and your book.
Yeah, so you can certainly find me at freebirdsrevolution.com, and then it's mbopartners.com. And if you Google my name, Miles Everson, you get mostly good stuff. but you'll be able to find me. And so, I'm at Amazon and all the major book outlets for the book. And hopefully, I view the book as everyone kind of thinks they have a book in them. This was the book that was in me. And fortunately, was able to get it out. It became, I don't know if I told you or not, but it became a national bestseller in USA
Right.
Today. So
No,
we're
congratulations.
happy about that. If people can get a golden nugget out of it, that's great. That's how I view if we can make some positive impact for people. So
Well, listeners, no matter if you are employed or a business owner, it is worth checking out Miles's book because there's something in it for all of you. Well, Miles, thank you so much for the gift of your time and all the insights that you shared on today's episode.
excellent. Thanks, Karen. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. And thank you too, listeners, for the gift of your time because we don't take your patronage lightly. There are literally millions of other podcasts out there, and we are so happy and thankful that you follow us. All that we ask is that you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform of choice and share the podcast with just one friend because by doing so, we'll all get smarter about blended workforces at work. Thanks a ton and see you next week. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you again for listening to the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at blendedworkforcesatwork.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand, contract, fractional, or project basis. Huge thanks to the SDL production and editing team for a job well done. Bye for now.